Brothers and sisters, we are blessed to be here, so we praise Allah an abundant praise. We are manifestations of divine mercy. Every moment of our existence has been blessed by our Creator, Provider, and Sustainer. So faith is fundamentally rooted in gratitude, giving thanks, living a life of servitude to our Creator, Provider, and Sustainer. And that life requires a system. And that system is the will of God, Islam. And one who claims to do the will of God is a Muslim. And one who tries to excel sincerely doing the will of God according to knowledge is a pious Muslim, one with taqwa. And so Ramadan is a month-long training exercise intended to increase our piety. The purpose of the month of Ramadan being revealed to us is to give us that sense of spiritual focus in our lives, a sense of clarity of where we come from, what we're doing and where we're going, and how we stay disciplined to remain upon the straight path. And so that Ramadan fasting and reading Quran and protecting oneself from the impulsive desires that we have is this beautiful revitalization of spiritual purpose for an entire month. So we want to reiterate that many people have fallen in to the warning of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. رُبَّ صَائِمٍ حَظُّهُ مِنْ صِيَامِهِ الْجُوعُ وَالْعَطَشِ. That there are some people who fast and all they get out of it is hunger and thirst, meaning it was a waste of time. It did not fulfill its purpose. And so once we've set the tone, like we talked about last week, planning an environment that is conducive to spiritual growth and development, setting a place in our home where we will gather, putting some specific plans together. I'm looking at you, I'm saying, if you want to maximize it, you should have done that. But you still have time now. Ramadan starts tonight, alhamdulillah. So we set the stage or the environment. We put our attitude in the right place towards the purpose of this month. And then we set these goals, and then we move forward in the most sacred time of the year. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said that when Ramadan comes, that the devils are shackled, and that the gates of hell are closed and locked, and the gates of heaven are open wide. This is a metaphor to say that the one who is fasting for the right reason will be protected from the influence of the devils, and that their sense of purpose will be increased in value through spiritual focus to where all of their good deeds are multiplying by many times over. And because of that focus, they are not having bad deeds to hold them back. And so then the Prophet ﷺ said, and then one calls to the one who has embraced Ramadan with the right intention and right purpose, and they've set themselves with goals. Ya baghi al-khair, aqbil. Oh, you who wants to do good, try your best. Go for it. I'm with you. I will support you. Wa ya baghi al-shar, aqsir. And the one who became comfortable doing evil, stop doing that evil. This is the time to train yourself against sin. Fasting is a special type of worship. The Prophet ﷺ said that the angel Gabriel told him that God has declared in the Hadith Qudsi that كُلُّ عَمْلِ ابْنِ آدَمْ لَهُ إِلَّا الصِّيَامِ فَإِنَّهُ لِي وَأَنَا أَجْزِي بِهِ. That every action that one of the children of Adam will do is something they will benefit from, and people will all appreciate that, and that will be something that will be multiplied in its value to the world. If you're praying, usually someone's going to see you praying. If you give charity, someone's going to see you give charity. If you promote good, people will appreciate that you spoke the truth and stood up for justice, right? But fasting is only something that you and Allah knows. No one else knows. So if you are a true believer, then you will fast with this obedience against your desires. Of course, we all want to eat and drink every day. It's part of life. It's how we stay alive. So when you quit that, you're proving yourself as a true believer. Because otherwise, you would just be torturing yourself, as many non-Muslims are thinking about it. Because they're struggling with their belief in the essence of reality in and of itself. We're trying to take it to the next level in this blessed month. And so that's how piety is cultivated. This deep sincerity, this awareness, this mindfulness. And so then with the Quran and celebrating the revelation of the Quran and reading a lot of the Quran along with this, it only multiplies the value. So then the Prophet ﷺ taught us. He taught us that if we are in Ramadan, we should be extra specially careful to guard our tongues. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, لا يستقيم إيمان عبد حتى يستقيم لسانه ولا يستقيم لسانه حتى يستقيم قلبه. Right? So, what is in the heart comes out of the mouth. If you want to purify what's in the heart and what is comfortable there, then you have to train what comes out of the mouth. And so if you are careful, as the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, if you're fasting, no one should raise their voice, no one should be rude and disrespectful, no one should use foul language or curse at people. If someone is rude or annoying, say, look, I'm fasting, please leave me alone. And the Prophet ﷺ said, مَنْ لَمْ يَدَعْ قَوْلَ الزُّورِ وَالْعَمَلْ بِهِ فَلَيْسَ لِلَّهِ حَاجَةً أَنْ يَدَعَ طَعَامَهُ وَشَرَابَهُ. God does not see any value in someone fasting from food and drink if they cannot stop acting upon and speaking with corrupt speech. Now, this does not mean that if you lied or you raised your voice or you used foul language in Ramadan, now your fasting is invalid, you don't fast. What it means is you yourself should feel very deeply concerned in that moment. You should move to repentance. And people around you should be like, no, we're fasting. This is not the becoming of a believer. Let's not do that. Astaghfirullah. There should be a very, very strong concern about this. Because if someone goes through fasting and they use foul language, they yell at people, they curse people, they mock people, they backbite people throughout the month, they are not really truly fasting. Yeah, they will get the reward for trying to fulfill an obligation of religion and the discipline that it took to stop eating and drinking. They will get that reward. But they will not get what the intended spiritual purpose of it is, which is purification from evil. And it's this awareness of spiritual purpose that is so heightened in this month that makes it much easier than other times, which of course it's always haram to yell at people and to curse at people and to be rude and backbiting. All of that's haram. But now is the time to stop doing that. Now is the time to train ourselves against that. And so fasting is this exercise in controlling our desires. And in controlling your desires, there's a whole system. It says the Quran was revealed to be a whole system of guidance. And so that's why the Prophet ﷺ said, الصيام والقرآن يشفعان للعبد يوم القيامة. Fasting in the Quran will be an intercessor for someone on the Day of Judgment. If someone was fasting for the right reasons, in the right way, maintaining the right purpose, and if they read the Quran to seek guidance, and they take notes, and they learn lessons that they then apply in their lives, then the Quran and fasting will become this means of salvation on the Day of Judgment. And so it's crucial that we take time in this month to reflect on the Quran. People have asked me, of course, reading the Quran is a beautiful thing and loving the Quran is a beautiful thing. But the purpose of the Quran, as the Quran tells us in hundreds of places, is to guide us to become better people. So if your dilemma is, should I try to do a khatmah in Arabic? If you're not an Arab, I'm saying that's the wrong priority altogether. If you don't know Arabic, you're going to spend a whole lot of time in this month trying to get good rewards for just loving the Quran superficially, which is what that is. Because when the Prophet ﷺ talked about people reading the Quran and gaining benefit from him, the people he was talking to were all Arabs, every last one of them. Nobody would have understood in his time that this is referring to a non-Arab reading Quran in Arabic. I'm sure the Prophet ﷺ himself did not imagine that would happen. It's a beautiful thing that people love it that much. But the point of the Quran is to be guided. And some of you are looking at me strange because I have found many people who spent many years of their life never reading the Quran for guidance because this emphasis was way like that and we need to balance it back, right? Now, if you are coming from an Arabic background, we know that the Arabic you're speaking daily is not what you're reading in the Quran. You may be having a hard time with half what you read in the Quran, which is why you should have some tafsir available. Okay? So you should have a tafsir al-Sa'di or a tafsir al-Qattan. These are short, good, sweet commentaries. Or you could go with a deep one, right? And just do one surah, al-Baqarah, for example. And that would be a profound. There is no teaching anywhere in the Quran and the Sunnah that says you have to finish the Quran in Ramadan. That's never existed. This is a misunderstanding that comes from the Prophet ﷺ telling people you should be reading the Quran at least once a month, every month. That is a hadith. And so for that reason, Abu Hanifa and Imam Shafi'i had put in their jurisprudence that at least in Ramadan, you should read it once a month. If you've misunderstood that as in Ramadan we have to read the Quran once, you're missing the point altogether, especially if you're not reading it any other month. So this is where we have to revitalize our understanding of Islam. And the more you study the Quran as a manual of guidance, what it is, the more you will have the desire to have a deeper understanding in what it's teaching. And so, as believers, this is a time of discipline. And so again, the point of fasting is to learn discipline. So it is not the Sunnah, and it is completely contradictory to the whole point of fasting, that you would complete a whole day of fasting and then stuff yourself to oblivion. One of the meanings whenever it says, "Kulu washrabu wa la tusrifu, inna Allah la yuhibbul musrifin, innahu la yuhibbul musrifin," that you may eat and drink, but don't be extravagant. Don't be wasteful. Israf can be just letting it go to waste, or to eat much more than you need, right? And so this is where we have to be disciplined. Eat a small plate. Now that your stomach is kind of shrinked and all of that, you won't need to. It's the whisper of the devil is going to tell you, but now it's the tradition. Many people put so much more emphasis, my beloved sisters in Islam, on we have to make this huge feast every night of like 14 different items. No, that was not the way of the Prophet ﷺ or any of his companions. They would have ate just a simple little plate, right? And they were fine. Some dates, some water, some bread, some oil, maybe some ghee, some fat, some milk, and call it a day, go pray Taraweeh. Come back, maybe have a date or two, get some sleep, get up, have some suhoor in a similar fashion. They went through the month like that. I can tell you from my own experience, since I took this seriously, it was about 7 years, okay? Every month I always lose between 8 and 10 pounds. It is blowing my mind when people tell me I gained weight in Ramadan. Because your body is not expecting to take a huge hit of grease, sugar, fat, oil on an empty stomach. So, كُلُوا مِنَ الطَّيِّبَاتِ وَاعْمَلُوا صَالِحًا. Eat good food, eat a good amount of food, and then do work righteousness. If you eat food that's not healthy or too much food, if you try to pray, you would not be able to focus because all your blood is down here digesting. So, Ya Allah, we ask you to bless us with the means of taking Ramadan to its fullest extent so that we may leave as those who have achieved your salvation in Jannat al-Firdaus al-A'la. Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. So we are in this spiritual discipline in which we are vigilant to look after what's in our heart. And so we're protecting what we say. We're thinking, we're taking that little weakness of our fasting as a moment to reflect. Should I say this? Should I say this in this way? And then purify our hearts. Studying the Quran, reading the Quran, sitting with the family for at least 30 minutes every day and maybe an hour. Anybody above 10 years old will understand the general meanings of the Quran, right? So we should be sitting as a family and reading some ayahs. And for sure, the Quran was not meant to be a book. You say, oh, I read it. That's the Quran. I know that book now. It's supposed to be a book that the most scholarly intellectual will read for 80 years, this book, and still be like finding things blown away. That's the purpose. So if you're like, yeah, when I read it, it was hard to follow. It's supposed to be. You're supposed to dig into it. You're supposed to devote yourself to this literary masterpiece of divine wisdom. And so you should write down, here's some lesson we took. This is what this means in our life. This is an important principle of life we've taken from this. Or this is a question. Why does it say, I'm trying to understand why it says this. I'm trying to understand this. Maybe we can go ask the scholars. And so that is a very important element. In addition to this, Anas bin Malik said, كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أجود الناس. Nobody knew somebody more generous than the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. وكان أجود ما يكون في رمضان. And the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, it was narrated about him that anytime anybody asked him about anything, he would give them it if he has it in his possession. And if he didn't have it, he would find something to give them. But in Ramadan, he was multiplied on that. So here we are, coming down the home stretch in this facility. According to the contract, this facility should be done in September. We should be ready to move in September. But we have to pay for it. There is no Wazarat al-Awqaf here. You are the Wazarat al-Awqaf. And so we have to increase 30% what we did last Ramadan to get into this, put ourselves in position to get into this building. We have a little ways to go here. So we went last year, I think we collected $930,000. Alhamdulillah. It's Allah's blessing, and it's from your sincerity that you took seriously the importance of this, which put us in position to get us where we're at. So this year, we're going to need to raise 1.2 million, which means a 30% increase. What does that mean? That means from 600 people, we need to average $2,000 in Ramadan. This is not hard. This is not hard. If somebody is thinking, I'm gonna have this big, mashallah, summer vacation. Can I take the kids to Disney World? Please cancel that. I've canceled, by the way. I was gonna take my family to Yosemite Park. I've canceled that. Yeah, because we found out it's gonna cost more than what we are expecting because of the nature of inflation and how these orders come, and when you have a specific time limit, they can raise the prices. So I said, you know what? Allah has more importance than anything else. We can go to the mountains and spend some days here for, much cheaper than that. So this is the time to buckle down and reach goals spiritually for ourselves as individuals, to purify our hearts. We ask Allah to purify our hearts. This is the time for our families to have a spiritual meaning that connects us. And this is the time for us as a community to build the future, that we will all be collecting a continuous reward when we leave this earth. Whoever goes to this giant, beautiful 28,000 square foot center, and whatever benefit and good deeds is happening, when we put money into it, according to how much we sacrificed, we will then get the multiplied reward in our favor. So it's time to buckle down. So may Allah bless us with Ramadan. May Allah bring our hearts to the best positioning of a state of purity and growth and development, that our minds and our words and our actions can fulfill our responsibility as believers in this world. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in wa aqim as-salah.